DJ Lil create vibes now.
Welcome to another episode of the Get a Love Like Mine podcast. We are your humble hosts. I'm Kesha Amos. This is my beautiful husband, Sam Amos. Welcome to season 4, episode 3. We hope that you have enjoyed the first 2 episodes and that something was said that was helpful to you in your situations. Yesterday, got a lot of positive feedback from people, really all this week, of people who I didn't know were listening, but they are listening, enjoying the podcast. So I hope that this episode does something for you as well.
Today, we're going to jump in. We do a lot of relationship and parenting topics. So today is on parenting, and not just us as parents, but when we were kids, for our own parents. Sometimes your parents need forgiveness, and sometimes that may be coming from the kid, or it may be just the parent has made mistakes along the way. You know, we as parents, we're not going to always get it right. And we do the best we can, or at least we hope. So, but there are going to be sometimes, I've seen a lot of broken relationships and a lot of people holding on to grudges and things of that nature for, months or years at a time. Even so long as you may have forgotten what it was I was mad at you about. Yeah. But a lot of times kids will remember things from their childhood, depending on how young they were, and carry that into adulthood and still have a grudge or feel some kind of way about that parent and the way you raised me. Maybe whether it be you were too strict or you didn't spend a lot of time with me, doing, extra things outside of school and work or whatever. But sometimes parents just need forgiveness.
And us as kids, as our parents' children, we have to show grace. I don't think you realize how much grace you should actually be showing your parents until you have kids of your own.
Right.
But, it doesn't necessarily it doesn't necessarily come because you had kids. It could just be because you're older and you've had a chance to think about that parents are just people who had kids. It's not like they were born parents. That's something and there's no playbook. Like, every child is different. Every child needs to be parented different. And so sometimes it's unfair to hold your parents accountable for something that they were really just doing the best they could. I see this meme all the time. How Instagram shows you things they think you might be interested in, not necessarily people you follow, but there's this meme that I keep seeing that it says, "To my daughter, please forgive me for the things that I've done wrong and the times that I've let you down. And just know that everything I've ever done, I did because I love you." And, it touches me every time I see it. But, it just got me to thinking, like, I have this great relationship with my daughter. But it is built off the not so great relationship that I have with my mom. And, we talk about all the time how you grew up. You'll either follow in your parents' footsteps or you'll do the opposite. And for me, for my parenting, I did the opposite because I feel like I don't have the best relationship with my mom. And so I wanted to make sure I had a great relationship with my daughter. Everything that I thought I lacked from my mom, I'm overcompensated with my daughter. And now that I'm older and my daughter is grown, I have started to think back on my childhood and realize my mom was really just doing the best she knew how to do. Like, yes, our relationship is not the best, but it's not like she chose for it to be that way. It's just the way things happen because she was doing the best she knew how to do.
I see that a lot, and I didn't think this way until I got older, that whether it be a parent or co-worker or just a relative or whatever, don't be so quick to, write this person off or throw them in jail or whatever to disregard them, because you don't know how they got that way. Mm-hmm. You don't know what their upbringing was or what traumatic experience in their life made them think the way they think, which makes them act the way they act now. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, even when I see stories on the news, and it'll make you wonder, like even we discussed this with R. Kelly, when you look back at how he is now versus how did he get here? Mm-hmm. Well, they talk about he was molested as a kid and by family members, or was it his sister? Right? Mm-hmm. So it was bad, like the whole thing was bad, but don't just look at this little square right here where he ended up. Look at way back here where it started, mm-hmm. and be like, well, he probably wouldn't have ended up in this box if it hadn't have started way back here. So, you have to have some kind of understanding when it comes to people, mm-hmm. and where their background and where they came from.
How they get to where they are. And you have to show them grace. But it's always nice when someone takes accountability on their own. It's one thing to forgive your parents because they were doing the best thing, the best they knew how to do. But it's a whole other thing when they apologize to you and tell you, I'm sorry for what I did.
They see it.
And I see that I could have done better as a parent or whatever, and you won't always get that. I tell my kids all the time, the hardest thing I ever had to do was forgive somebody who wasn't sorry for what they did. Mm-hmm. But you can't keep holding on to the hurt and anger for somebody, especially like if they're dead and gone. You still have to forgive them for what they did. But I wanted to ask, have you ever apologized to your kids, like verbally you did something wrong or whatever, and you?
I have before, and I explained to them my thought process of how I ended up making the decision I made or whatever it was. But I use. You need to have a relationship with your kids where you can at least talk to them like that. Don't always... See, we came up in an era where our parents were way up here and the kid was so far down here. A lot of times you didn't even get an explanation why you got your answer. You just, this is the answer, head on out. Go back to your room or whatever. So we didn't really care for that as kids. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we'll explain stuff to our kids why we don't just make decisions off of whoever rolled the dice. Well, it came up 6, and 6 means no. But yes, I've explained many times to my kids why things are the way they are, so that they'll have understanding and they won't look at you with a big question mark, like, I don't know what's going on in Dad's head.
Yeah, that's how I grew up. If I'm one of those people who I am naturally curious. I want to know why you said yes or why you said no, and why you think the way you think. Like I want to know all those things. So as a kid, like it's funny you would say the parents were up here and the kids was down here. It was like you need to learn to stay in a child's place. You don't interrupt grown folks while they're talking. You don't question them. If they tell you no, the answer is just no. If whatever. So it put me in a mindset of not being able to relate to my parent, to my mom specifically, and I don't think I ever got an apology from her because I was never even allowed to express that something she did hurt me or disappointed me, right, or whatever. Like even if they did something that upset you and you start crying, it was, you better stop crying before I give you something to cry for, and just stop crying because you didn't want a whooping. It's just a way that you were talked to as a child that made you not be able to relate to your parents. That, made me not be able to relate. And so becoming a parent, I made the conscious decision to talk to my child about everything, whatever was going on. And maybe I, exposed her to too much. But I'd rather her feel comfortable to come to me and talk to me about anything than to feel like she doesn't know me.
One thing you said, I don't know why a parent would think this, but a lot of parents back in that era when we grew up thought that same way of keep the kid, you need to stay in your place. Like, and you may have walked away scratching your head. Like, I wasn't trying to get out of my place. I wasn't trying to take your place. I wasn't trying to show you up. I just want to understand. Mm-hmm. But they treated you like you were not worthy of,
capable
of understanding. Like, mm-hmm. I'm intelligent enough. If you explain to me that going to Travis Scott and there may not be enough security, and then the whole thing falls apart. Well, man, that might make sense to me. Instead of just saying, "No, you can't go. Have a seat."
I always use the example of look both ways before you cross the street. Your parents tell you that, look both ways before you cross the street. But if they never tell you why you're looking both ways before you cross the street, it might go in one ear and out the other. Like, I don't know why she keeps telling me look both ways before I cross the street. But if you walk out there and see somebody get hit by a car because they didn't look both ways, then you'll realize. So you could just tell them, hey, look both ways before you cross the street so that you don't get hit by a car. It's cars coming from both directions. You need to make sure you don't get hit. That makes a lot more sense. But when I was growing up, it was just, can I go here? No. Can I do this? No. Can I spend the night over there? No. Well, why? Don't ask me nothing. Because I said so was the answer. And, it never sat well with me because of how my mind works. And so when I had kids, I always made sure to say why, what's the reason. Even if the reason is because I'm tired and I don't feel like driving over there. At least they know it's not anything they did wrong or I'm just being unreasonable. I've been at work 12 hours. I don't feel like having to drop you off somewhere and then having to come back to pick you up. So, just to explain. I don't feel like giving the explanation takes them out of a child's place. No. I don't feel like I'm answering to them. I feel like I'm just communicating with them, which is important. When I was growing up, like if we had family gatherings or whatever, my mom had a bunch of siblings, like it was 14 of them. So when we had family gatherings, it was like the adults would be in one place and the kids somewhere else, and we just knew to behave. Like we knew we didn't want anybody coming in having to tell us to be on our best behavior or whatever, but it was just so different when you see your parent around a bunch of adults as opposed to just the two of you in the house together. Not to say that she was acting like somebody different, it's just to see her let loose. And to think about it now, it's like she was just being a woman. You know what I mean? It's not, we put so much pressure on a parent, like they're supposed to be a god or something, like they're supposed to be this person of high stature when they are just a human. They are just a man, just a woman who had a child, and now they have the responsibility of raising you. I look at kids, 15-year-old get pregnant, have a baby. Like, you can't expect this 15-year-old to be super mom or super dad. Like, they are literally just children who had a baby. Now they're forced to be parents, and they're basically going to grow up with their kids. They're in different stages of childhood. But, I look back at my mom's childhood, and she lost both her parents when she was 15, the other she was 16, 11 months later. Like, she lost them very close together. And so I feel like that age, that 15, 16 age, is a very impressionable age. And so you go from having your parents there to talk to not having them there, like being raised by your older siblings or whatever. And I don't know if she was told stay in the child's place or anything like that. I just know that when I got to that age, 15, 16, I did not relate to her in any way. It just seemed like we were two completely different people. I hear a lot of people say that the girls, when they get to that age, they start feeling themselves and they start arguing with their mamas back and forth.
I hear that about the guys too.
Yeah, I mean, they do. But, I mean, did you experience that? I know you have sisters. Did your sisters, like, at that age, 15, 16, start, like, arguing with your mom, or your mom accusing them of talking back or whatever?
I don't know if it was the teenage, but it did happen. Mm-hmm. But it seemed like more so maybe a little before the teenage, but I definitely remember my mom having to correct all of us, really. Mm-hmm. And back then, you couldn't storm off. Yeah. You couldn't mumble under your breath. Mm-hmm. When you got corrected. You couldn't slam the door. As a matter of fact, you couldn't even close it quietly. The door had to stay open. There's no door closing here.
Right.
But I could see that definitely. They probably went through it a little more with my older sister than with the middle sister, but definitely it did happen.
Yeah, I think that, and I was expecting that with my daughter. I was expecting to go through that phase of her being mad at me all the time, wanting to buck me or fight me or argue with me. She never did any of that. Which makes me feel like what I did, the overcompensating, worked. And when I say overcompensating, I mean making sure that I talk to her and explain to her, communicate with her. If I'm telling you no, I'm telling you why I'm saying no. If I let you do something, I'm giving you my expectations for when you do it. If I let you go somewhere, I expect you to be on your best behavior. I expect you to call me, when it's over. I expect you to do whatever. And just giving her, I always tell her, I'm giving you game, girl. I'm telling you about how, dating boys was when I was growing up, so that you won't be fooled by certain things now that you're dating boys. I just feel like what I chose to do helped her to relate to me. So where now, if you ask her anything, like, she feels so comfortable talking to me, sometimes it makes me uncomfortable. I be looking like, girl, did you forget I'm your mama? But I love that. I love our relationship. I love that we can just decide, hey, let's go shopping, hey, let's go get our nails done, because those are things I just never did with my mom. If I went shopping with her, it was sit down, don't touch nothing, don't ask for nothing, that type of thing. It was not a pleasant experience. And I'm just grateful that I'm at a position where I'm at. But like I said, now that I'm older, I think about my mom and the fact that she didn't have her parents at that age. She just was doing the best she knew how.
So, that being said, you feel like, well, maybe I should extend some grace to my own mom. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should be more forgiving now that I'm a parent and I understand that, going through it, and of course you didn't like it. Mm-hmm. But now that you had a chance to sit back and assess it, and now you're more mature, and not only that, you're not dealing with it anymore.
Yeah.
So you're able to look at it and say, well, maybe she was just doing the best she could, but to lose your parents so early in life, that had to have an effect on not being able to develop well and become a parent. So, like, you came up in your 20s and 30s or whatever when you were a single mom, but you always had that support system. Like, when you had to go to work, you was able to take your kid to your mom. She didn't have that.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely you could see, loopholes and be able to understand. Maybe I should be a little more forgiving and understanding for what I went through, because she wasn't able to, she didn't have all the tools that I have now.
Right.
Because her parents weren't there.
And I'm grateful that as I get older, she is able to see me as a parent, and she makes a conscious effort now to be a better grandma. Like, I'm not saying that I influence her, but she points out at every chance she gets that she never would have done the things that I do, or allowed the things that I allowed to go on. But I'm not knocking her parenting, because she is the mother to some pretty successful kids. Myself and my brother, we're doing all right. And like, my mom and dad divorced when I was 7. My brother and my brother's dad and my mom divorced when he was like 4. So she kind of raised us both as a single mom. And she made sure that even though she was strict and, like I said, didn't really communicate to the best, I guess, the best for me. I'm pretty sure she did the best that she could, but it wasn't the best for me. She still got her point across to the point where we both made good grades and we both went on to make something of ourselves. We're not drug addicts or, hanging out with kids all over the city, and, we could have come out a whole different way. I put it that way. But I feel, are successful. So she did a good job, raising us. And I'm grateful that now with her grandkids, that she makes sure she is there for us, which is something that, I'm pretty sure she probably saw it, because she was like the baby girl of her parents' kids. But like for her own kids, she didn't have it, because I had a grandmother, but it was on my dad's side. I didn't have a I never knew my grandmother on my mom's side, and my brother didn't either. So it's not like when she was working, she could say, go to your grandmother's house, or go to your grandmother's house for the summer. She didn't have that. And so, she did the best she could with the resources that she had. And I'm grateful that now, like, when my brother's daughter lives in Georgia, but when she comes here, if he's working, she's like, bring her over here. She is always there to help with the grandkids, and I'm grateful for that. I'm appreciative of that. I hadn't even really considered the fact that I have resources that she didn't have. Hadn't even thought about that.
And the other thing, really one of the main purposes for this topic today is the way, you've grown up to be an adult. You have your own kids, you're a parent, and you're able to show your mom grace and understand where she came from, instead of looking back and being bitter and then saying, look, this is what you should have done with me. Let me show you how you should have parented. So you don't do that with your mom. So you have respect for her, but you're able to extend grace and be forgiving for the way things went. Now, like you say, you and your brother turned out really good. So you're able to, you can't knock the whole scenario because it ended up on the sunny side anyway. But I think it's huge, because I hear of like parent-child relationship all the time where, we just aren't close. I'm not gonna call if he don't call, and they skipping Mother's Day, Father's Day, and everybody's, looking kind of weird about it, but no one wants to make the first move to say, hey man, we need to fix this. And I hate to say it, but we all have to die someday. Mm-hmm. So if you don't ever fix it, and you wait till, the two of y'all are separated eternally, then, wow, it's never going to get fixed. So take some time, reflect. You don't have to, figure it all out in one day. But make an attempt to reach out or say, hey man, even if it was the parents' mistake, you can say, look, I'm going to be the bigger person and reach out and try to at least bury this. I'm going to extend forgiveness, even though you were the one that was in the wrong, so that we can move past this, because life is too short to hold grudges and think things are just going to fix themselves. They don't. Things don't fix themselves. People fix things. That's the only way it's going to get fixed. You're not going to wake up and, it's in a nutshell. It's not going to be in there. You're going to have to do something.
Yeah. I thought about what you said, and sometimes, like I said, parents are just people. They're just men and women who had kids. And sometimes those men and women are toxic. Sometimes whatever relationship they have, whatever relationship they build, it doesn't work out. Like, they can't keep a successful marriage, they can't keep a girlfriend, can't keep a boyfriend, and that pours over on the kids, on your relationship with your kids as well. Sometimes you have, like I said, you have to forgive people who are not sorry. And it is okay to protect your own peace. Like, if your parent is a toxic person and they are not actively seeking help, you can still grant them grace. You can still recognize the good qualities that they exhibited, of how you got to where you are, to where you're even emotionally intelligent enough to know that they are toxic. And you can protect your peace. It doesn't mean you have to be, like, you're grown now. You don't have to be in their presence at all times, but you still have to show them respect as your parent. You still have to honor your parents so that your days on earth will be long. And so when you have situations like that, what do you think is the best way to maneuver? Like, when your parent really, truly is toxic. Like, you don't want to be around them. You don't want your kids to be around them. But you still want to honor them and forgive them for the mistakes they made in the past.
Well, one of the main things for me, I've never had to deal with that. But I know, many people do. I'm just grateful I haven't. But for starters, the biggest thing you can do is pray for them. Pray for y'all's relationship. You might even go so far as to go and pray with that parent, so that they'll understand the seriousness of how this is affecting you and how much you want it resolved or fixed or corrected or changed or whatever. But prayer is one of the things that can change anything. So I would advise that first and foremost, whether you do it with the parent or just you and your spouse or just you and your kids or whatever, because if you never do anything, it could change later on. Like, that parent could grow out of whatever lifestyle they live or whatever, but they may not. So, it's a 50-50 chance, and I don't know if you want to live that way, especially if it's disturbing you and you want your kids to know that grandparent like that, and they are, you're kind of leery of it or whatever. Like, if your parent had an addiction, say that's all they did was smoke weed, and you just really don't want your kids around that. So that would be a great example of, you could go and discuss it with that parent, especially if you're an adult. But I mean, just pray about stuff like that.
I agree. You should pray about it, but you got to communicate it with them too. You can't just, or you shouldn't just cut your parent out of your life and not explain to them why, because they don't have any motivation to change if they don't know why. If I go to my parent and tell them, look, you have been smoking crack since I was 7. I don't want to be around that. I don't want my kids around that.
I don't even want you around.
I don't even want you around it. But if you're going to continue doing it, I have no choice but to love you from afar. I wish you the best. I'm going to pray for you. But I'm not going to come around if you're still doing that.
Do you know how powerful that would be? Like, if you're that parent to go off somewhere and think about that by yourself, that my child came and said that to me.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like if you just communicate it to them, at least now they have motivation to say, you know what, if I want to see my kids and my grandkids, I got to get off of this.
I can do better.
I can do better than this. And, I just, that can be for any situation. Drugs, alcohol. You had spoke last week about your friend who his dad was always running around with different women. You could even speak to that and say, hey, I don't want to be a part of your lies. Like, I don't want to be a part of your alibi. Don't get the line on me saying you were with me when you were with somebody else. I love you and I want to respect and honor you. But I'm grown. You got to respect and honor me too at this point. And I don't want to be around that. I had a talk recently with my daughter about her relationship with her dad. And when she was growing up back in the early years, he and I used to argue a lot. And one of the things he told me was, one day she's going to see. And I was thinking the same thing. One day she is going to see. And now that day is here and she sees. And so, she bought a new car like in May. This is October. I'm like, has your dad seen your car? No. How come you don't go see your dad? He's always working. I say, he's not always working. There is a time that he is at home. You need to find out that time and go see him. Like when before you were 18, he had a court order that said he could see you during these times. Even though he could have seen her at any other time, that was the time he chose to see her when the court order allowed it. But now there's no court order. You can see him every day if you want to. And you can't just put it on him. You are an adult now. You have to actively seek a relationship with your parents. I don't really know too many grown people whose parents come to their houses. Generally, when you want to see your parents, you go to the parents' house, to the grandparents' house or whatever. It's not a lot of times where the grandparents are coming over to you, or the times that y'all see each other, they're coming to you. They may call you, check on you, but or if you're having like a holiday at your house or something, but just a stop by is generally the child that goes to see the parent when you're grown. So, I had that talk with her. I don't think it changed anything. I still don't think she has gone to see him, but I encourage it. Like, he was just doing the best he knew to do. Like, his dad was not there. His dad was not there for him. So, yes, he, when he was present, he tried to be a good dad to her, but he didn't have much experience in that department.
Well, in her defense, like, this is a situation that is very delicate, and once it gets off track, so many people either don't know how to get it back on track, they're not interested in putting the work in to make it. There's nothing worse than having a strange feeling around your parent. Like you know what I'm saying? Like we
feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, we haven't spent enough time to where when you do come around, you're almost kind of looking at your watch, like wishing it. You know, you were like, well, I better. Oh, okay, I'm ready for you to go because. So in her defense, what I was saying is that he made choices along the way as she was little bitty and as she came up to now that may not be the best decisions as far as going to go spend time with us, you know, making an effort to come see you. Mm-hmm. They saw each other at some point in their relationship as if he lived out of state somewhere, but he lived right here in the city. That's how rare they see each other. What, twice a year, maybe?
Sometimes once a year.
Which is so. These are bad decisions that he made, and it affected their relationship. So now it's so broken, and now you're telling her, look, you know you can fix that. And she's going, why would I fix something he messed up? So here we are with the back and forth that she could use she could extend some grace.
She could extend some grace.
And some forgiveness there. Because she's not, at her age, she's not thinking, I wonder how my dad got to where, you know, I wonder how he arrived at his decision making. Mm-hmm. Maybe he didn't have his dad in his life. Maybe he didn't have a good
She probably doesn't even know that.
Right, that's my thing. She's not adding any of those things up now to think, you know, maybe my dad could use me to be a little better than what I'm doing to fix this, but it's not easy. I can totally understand where she's coming from. Like, at that age, she's 20, and when you're at 20, your mind is all over the place, especially now with all these social media outlets, all these cable networks. There's so much going on. How do you know who you really are? You know, you can sit and watch episode after episode after episode of a show, and like, you live here in this house with us and we rarely see you, and you're here. But you can just imagine he doesn't see her for months at a time, and I think about that with my own daughter. Like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, that you make the conscious effort, and so does she. It's like, because you make so much of an effort to see her and be around her, when she's not around, she's calling, I miss you, Dad, you know, things like that. And I get it. That it's the same way in any relationship. When you start dating somebody or you have a new friend, the more time and effort that you put into each other, the more time and effort that you want. Like, the more time you spend with the person, you get used to them being around, you want them around more. And I think that her and her dad are just in that awkward stage of where they haven't been around each other so much to where once they are around each other, it's going to be just like you said, looking at your watch like, it's time to go now.
You don't know what to talk about.
Ready to get back in my comfort zone. But they have to start somewhere. It's got to start somewhere.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not going to say he's old and set in his ways, because he's not that much older than me, and I'm willing, you know, to learn. I'm open-minded, so he probably is too. I just think he may be, I won't say embarrassed, but maybe ashamed of where they are. Specifically because his wife has daughters that I am sure he is closer with than what he is with his own daughter. Just because they're there. You know what I mean? They're in the house with him. Well, I don't know if they still live there now. They're grown, but I know growing up, they were there. So, I don't know. But I hope they work it out at some point, because just because she turned 18 doesn't mean you don't have to see her anymore. You don't have to spend time. You're still her dad. Like, when she has kids, you're gonna be pawpaw, you know, regardless of whether you're the pawpaw they see once a year or the pawpaw they see every weekend. You know, you're still gonna be a pawpaw. So,
one thing about it, you only get two parents. I don't care how you slice it up, ignore it, put it in the shoebox, put it on the bed. Those are still the only two parents you're gonna ever have. Now you can go and love on somebody else's parents and call them mama and all that there. That's fine, but you know who your real parents are. It's never gonna change. So keep that in mind when you're holding grudges and waiting on them to make the first move or the first call, or you go to the family gathering, you sit on that end of the table, I'm sit down here because I don't really have much to say to you because of that money you didn't pay me back.
Oh wow, I don't even want to get started on that topic. But this past summer, we went to St. Lucia on vacation, and I was able to relax and clear my mind for the first time in a long time. And one of the things that God spoke to me about during that trip was I spent a lot of time in my prayer life asking God to forgive me for, I'm not going to say how I treat my mom, but how I think of her. Like I had a lot of resentment for things that happened in my childhood, for how I was raised, for just the way our relationship was. And God put it on my heart to sit down and talk to her about it, about how the things she said or did made me feel, because I had never I was never allowed to express that to her, but now as an adult I was able to do so. And she just told me some things that kind of revealed a new level of grace for me to extend to her, because I had never even considered her feelings or where she was in life. Going from her and my dad got married she had just turned 25, 24 or something like that, 24. And so she went from her parents dying when she was 15, 16, to being in the house with my aunt, which is her older sister, taking care of her. She did go to college, and then met my dad, and then went to my dad taking care of her. My dad, paid all the bills, made all the decisions. He pretty much just ran everything. And he was abusive to her. And then at 31, 32, here she is, a single mom with a 7-year-old. And trying to navigate going from being taken care of to now having to stand on your own 2 feet, and you got another mouth to feed, and you want to be married. So you trying to navigate dating, you trying to navigate being single, you trying to navigate being a mom, being a woman. Like, I just didn't I expected more of her than what I should have. I had her up on this pedestal when I should have just seen her as a woman who happened to have a kid, because that's what she was. She was trying to navigate being divorced, wanting to be remarried, trying to take care of a house, being a homeowner, buying her own cars. Like, she was learning as she went, and I just hadn't granted her that grace. So I was so glad that God pushed me to have that conversation with her. And I have been actively since then trying to just, like I said, grant her grace for the things and forgive her for some of the stuff that I feel like maybe I was being a little unrealistic in my anger, like holding a grudge against her for some things that it wasn't necessarily her fault. It was just how life went for me. But anyway, I'm just grateful that I was able to have that conversation with her and try to actively be in a better space. Like I said, she's a great grandmother. She does, her best for her grandkids. And I'm grateful that I have that, because she didn't have it. She didn't have her parents there to help her. or her mom specifically. So what would you do if, what advice would you give someone who is being a new parent? You've been a parent for 23 years. I've been a parent for 20 years. I feel like we both have a wealth of knowledge. We've raised kids with other people. We're raising a son together. What advice would you give to someone who is new to parenting? And kind of like, I feel like at different ages, you parent different. In your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s. So what advice would you give?
From being a parent and from watching my parents, one of the biggest things that I would advise a new parent is to always find time to spend with your child. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't realize the magnitude of stopping. We're so busy trying to provide a better home, a better life, being able to go out to eat, vacation, and all those things are nice. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you need to carve out some alone time for just you and that kid. My dad said, when we grew up, we grew up with both my parents in the house. Mm-hmm. And we saw my dad work 2 jobs. My dad worked 2 full-time jobs. But he also had side hustles. He hot shot packages in his truck. He cut lots and fields and yards. He would take me with him to go do that type of stuff. He did everything under the sun. He was always providing. Mm-hmm. But in his own words, what he said was, I wish I had not been working so much that I didn't have time to spend with you guys. Now that he's borderline retired and much older, like in the past 10 years, we've all grown like really, really close. Like, this is the relationship he wished he would have had with us when we were little, even though we have it now, so we didn't miss out. But his thing was, I put so much emphasis on work that I didn't have time to spend with my kids. And then, so when we were younger, we rarely heard my dad say anything. When he came in, he jumped in the shower, he took a nap, and he was back out the door. If he had to say something to you, you didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when his correction came, you were corrected. Mm-hmm. So it was better almost that he didn't have to say nothing to you. So this is the other thing. Now, that was my advice from watching my parents. Mm-hmm. But from being a parent, the same thing. I've gone to lunch at the school with every one of my kids, every single one of them. And it's amazing how much that kid lights up just to see you there. And to go even a step further, the other kids around there, I can hear them whispering, man, you are so lucky. Mm-hmm. And now to the parent, which is me, I'm looking at my watch, man, I got somewhere else I need to be. Let's get this over with. I got to go. But that is the biggest thing to a kid. Mm. And it really means nothing to you. So I'm saying, don't discount the importance of your presence when it comes time to go spend time with that kid, because it means the world to them. Yeah. They'll never forget it. And to you, you're going, man, I'm racing up the freeway to get there because I know how much it means to them. But if I didn't have to go, I would be just fine.
I think about that. One thing I know about you is that your parents, like you played basketball or football or whatever sport you were playing, your parents made sure to be at all your games. And I know that from hearing you talk about it. I've heard your dad talk about it. I've heard your sisters talk about it. And they probably were doing their best. I'm pretty sure there was something else. They could have been somewhere else. They could have been rather than at your middle school or high school basketball games or whatever, but they made a point to be there for you, and that's something that you never forgot. And so, like, my daughter, she was into music. So anytime she had a recital, whatever, I was a single mom. I was going to college and working a full-time job, but I would miss out on sleep to make sure that I was there at whatever she was having at school. Same with my son. He wants to be, he wants to play every sport. So whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever, I'm rushing home from work to get him, to take him to practice. Spending my Saturday mornings or Friday nights or Sundays at Little League games, just to make sure that he knows I'm there to support him. And I pray that when he's older, he remembers that. He remembers my mom was always there. My mom was, she sacrificed to do whatever. And one thing I do love is that my daughter tells him about it. Like, she tells him, Mom could have did this, or she didn't have to do that, and you need to thank her for doing whatever. So I love that. We always say that parenting, each child needs to be parented different. So would you give different advice for boy moms and dads as opposed to girl moms and dads, or does this spend time advice is all across the board?
Spending time pretty much is going to have the same effect on any of them. But like you say, just with the group that we have, all our kids, you parent them different. They all need something different. Like this middle boy in between all these other kids is the one that I talk to the most. He calls me about everything. He's sending pictures of cars. He's sending people getting dunked on in a video. That's just who he is. That's our relationship. Mm-hmm. That's not, now the one, the 9-year-old, it's not that. But he comes and sits next to me. He just wants to hear me talk a lot of times. He wants the old man wisdom to come out of me. So he asked me a lot of questions. Dad, what is this for? How does that work? Why is this here? And I have to stop when I'm doing an answer. Mm-hmm. Stepdaughter, it was kind of a standoffish. I didn't rush in and say, hey, one day you're going to call me.
No. Don't do that.
No. But over time, I give her space to let her be her own self. If she make mistakes, we might discuss it, and you go and say something to her, mm-hmm. as opposed to me. But now, our relationship is, damn, my call won't start. She called me before she called you. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying all this to say, everybody needs something different. Marie doesn't live here, but we talk as much as, we talk more than some of the ones that do live here. Mm-hmm. So she's always close to Dad. So I feel bad for people who, especially dads who didn't do the bare minimum of things to help cultivate that relationship, because it's gonna grow its own self just by you showing up. Mm-hmm. And you've heard a million times, there's two type of presents. You can put presents under a Christmas tree, or you can sit in and be present. Mm. They need your presence more than they need your presence.
You said the same word 2 times.
No. I just don't want to see if you're going to catch that.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And I'm glad you mentioned your stepdaughter. So me, with the boys, I kind of just, I don't know if it's human nature or whatever. Every mom that I know that has a son and a daughter, I ask them, what do you see a difference in your relationship with your girls as opposed to your relationship with your boys? Mm-hmm. And really, you have to have both to be able to answer, because if you only have one, you only have that one experience. But everyone who I know that has a son and has a daughter says that their son is more clingy than the daughter ever was. Like, they are closer. Like, they need them more. They love on them harder. Things like that. So, my son, not only is he my son, but he's my baby. He's the baby of all 5 of the kids. So, of course, I spoil him. But how he comes to me and just wraps his arms around my neck, and my daughter used to do the same thing, but it just feels different coming from the boys. I love my son. My daughter, like I said, our relationship is so much better than my relationship was with my mom. We talk. She's able to tell me anything, and I love that. And she still loves on me. Like, she still hugs on me, and when she's going through things, I'm the first person she thinks to call and say what's going on or whatever. So I love that.
It's huge for your kid as an adult to respect your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But advice-wise, I would say for your boys, even though they love on you more and, they're clingy and they're closer to you, as a mom, you still have to teach them how to be a good man. I know a lot of people say a woman can't teach a man how to be a good man. I don't believe that. There's too many single moms in the world and too many good men for me to believe that woman didn't have some hand in how that man grew to be a good man. He may have learned to pull out a chair for his lady, or open the door for his lady, or be respectful of his lady because of his mom's influence on his life. So I say, advice-wise, still show them. Don't be that mom that, somebody says your son did this. Oh, not my baby, not my son. Yes, your son did something wrong. You have to hold them accountable and not just try to be their best friend or whatever it is. Same with your daughters. Be an example to them. We all want our kids to grow up and be better than we are, be more successful than we are, or whatever. Just know that your kids, your daughters specifically, are watching everything that you do. They're watching you. So if you're, sneaking around, you're doing whatever, they're watching that. And kids, like you said, when we were growing up, our parents thought we weren't capable of being in their conversations. These kids are smart. They know exactly what's going on. They can figure things out. They can read context clues. And they got Google. So anything they don't understand, they can look it up. So my advice, just know that they are watching everything that you do. And then as far as stepkids, like I said, I was glad you brought that up. I have 3. You just have 1. So I have 3 stepkids, 2 boys and a girl. And me personally, I just love kids. And they were all, pretty young when I came in their lives. I think baby girl was like 4 or 5 when I first came in the picture. So it was kind of easy to just be who I am with kids because I love kids. Mm-hmm. But one thing I never did was overstep. Because I do realize I'm not their actual parent. So I don't come in and say, you better do this or you better do that. Where I probably would do that with my natural kids, my biological kids. I would not do that to my stepkids. I would express, still communicate to them and say, you shouldn't be doing this, or, I give them the consequences of their actions, but I still leave it to their parents to discipline them. I've never spanked any of my stepkids. My stepdaughter, she was 6 years old one day. We had a rule, no eating in the room, no eating in the bedroom. You had to eat in the kitchen. And apparently my daughter was sneaking eating in the room. So this 6-year-old decided she was going to sneak and eat in the room too, except she was eating waffles or pancakes or something with syrup. So by the time she made it to the room, it's a trail of syrup from the kitchen all the way through, from the dining room all the way through the kitchen into the bedroom. So I did not spank her, but I told her, I'm going to tell your dad when you get home, because you know better. You know you are not supposed to be eating in this room. Dad comes home. I can hear her crying as soon as the door cracks. She is crying her little eyes out, but I still told him. And he had a talk with her. He didn't fuss at her. He didn't yell at her. He didn't spank her. But this baby cried for at least 30 minutes, to the point where I was like, now come on now. You didn't even get a whooping. You can cut the tears
you
out.
leave that kid alone.
You can stop crying.
She was disappointed in herself.
Yeah, right. But, as a step parent, you do have to kind of let the kid lead how the relationship is going to be. You can't over insert yourselves in their lives. You have to, ease your way in as much as they are comfortable. I think for me specifically, because the boys were like 9 and 10 or 8 and 9 or something like that, it was easy for them to, accept me. And because baby girl was so much younger and she kind of looked to her brothers for protection, the fact that they accepted me, I think, helped her to accept me as well. And, I did things with them. I spent time with them, especially like if you were working, let's all go to the movies, or let's go, hang out. Let's go. I remember one time I took them to the mall and they had those, like big bubbles that you get inside, and you're supposed to be like able to like walk on water when you're in the bubble. I took them to do that. They had a blast. They had the best day. So I did things with them, in an attempt to make memories with them that they would never forget. But, that kind of helped me to build a relationship with them. And then I talked to them. I talk to all of them the same way I talk to my kids about things that I experienced in my past. If they come to me for advice, I'm right there, Johnny on the spot, to help lead them and guide them and, give them my perspective if they ask for it. Like I said, I don't just over insert myself in their business, but if they ask me, of course I'm open to it.
Well, that approach worked for the age group and when they came in, when y'all came together, when they came into your life. Mm-hmm. But everybody, that's not going to work for everybody. So while you were telling that, it made me think of a good friend of mine. He kind of inherited a niece from either a parent going to be incarcerated or they passed away, whatever it was. He inherited a niece. The niece was teenage, 15 already. Already a bad actor in school. She was finna put on a show straight out the box. Mm-hmm. So in that instance, he came right up front and overexerted himself. Like, I'm still the parent here. Now you need to make sure when you're not overstepping or you're allowing things to just kind of flow naturally, that you still let this kid know I'm not trying to be your friend. Right. I'm still the parent here.
I think that's a little bit different, because when you're the step parent, generally there are still two parents. But in his situation, he was about to be the only parent. No.
He had this daughter that came in, the niece that came in was on his side of the family. But I think
she was going to be living with him full time. That's what I'm getting at.
Right, and he hadn't been too long got married, so it wasn't even that.
Yeah, well, I don't mean he was going to be a single parent. I just meant he was going to be a full-time parent, not a step parent. Right. So a step parent, they're coming on the weekends or whatever the time frame is, even if they come and spend the whole summer. It's not a permanent situation. It's not every day, all day. So you just try to make the most of the time that you have with them. But when you're talking about I get what you're saying. First of all, the age difference, that she was a teenager already, that 15, 16 year mark that we were talking about earlier. But he was going to be a full-time parent. And of course you have to, step up and lay the ground rules. This is what it's going to be. I'm not saying you're trying to win her over at this point. Like, you just have to do it. But that age is, even at that age, I feel like it's even more touchy, because they already have their own friends. They already know, they have already formed an opinion of what a parent is supposed to be and how a parent is supposed to act. And it's not like with our kids, where they had never experienced this before. At 15, 16, you probably have friends who have step parents or whatever. It's just a different situation. But I still, the advice that we gave still stands. I would still say spend time with them. I would still say, watch what you're doing, because they're watching everything you do, and they are. And, they're even more intelligent at that age, to where you can't sneak, and you can't even be talking about them behind their back and them not know what you're talking about. When they're little kids, you can sometimes spell some words and they won't know what you're talking about. At 16, you can't just say, she getting on my nerves. She knows what you said, and she heard you, and she's gonna hold a grudge against you because you said it. So it's a different situation, but I would still give the same advice. But anyway, we pray that if you guys are doing, having any situations with your parents or being a parent yourselves, that you will grant your parents grace and know that they were just doing the best that they were doing, and use that as, fuel for how you parent. Choose to be a better parent than your parent was to you. We do have an Ask the Amoses, so let me read this to you. I already had it pulled up. It's kind of long, but bear with me. So it says, I'm currently having a lot of problems in my relationship. I have kids from a previous marriage, and we have a kid together. Recently, he has shown his true colors. He's verbally abusive, he gaslights me, and is a true narcissist. He has cornered me, broken things around the house, but never physically hurt me. He tells people I'm his wife. He claims we're common law married. I'm willing to work it out only if, while we're in counseling, he's able to take accountability and admit his major wrongdoings to me. He owns the house we live in. We share a bank account, but I'm certain he hides money from me. He is very secretive with his phone. I'm sure he's not cheating, but I know he's not being honest about money. I don't want to be that chick again that thought he would never do that to me. Been there, done that. I don't really care what y'all think about this next statement. I want to make sure I'm not getting screwed if I leave. I don't plan to leave anytime soon because we're going to counseling, but I do need advice on what to do to make sure me and my kids are not homeless. What would you do? Have a living trust, get on the deed, get legally married. He hasn't always been this way, but when I'm at my wit's end and I think about my future, I have nothing. No money, no job, no house, a few young kids, and some debt, and that scares me. Help. Thank you. I'm not going to even put the phone down because I know I'm going to have to go back to read. But first, all these things you said, get a living trust, get on the deed, get legally married, none of that is going to help your situation. None of that is going to, unless all you thinking about is money. Even you getting on the deed, this is his house. You guys are not married. That is nothing. That's going to do nothing for you. But I've been talking a lot. What do you think?
Not a whole lot. I would definitely say that I would echo the same thing that you said, that please don't marry somebody just to try to secure a financial future. Like, I don't know if that was your whole reason for getting with the guy. You know, if did you ever really like him, or was you liking, you know, the way he rolling and the way he living, his lifestyle, whatever. But please don't just marry somebody to be a part of the future plans of his finances. I think going to see a third party as far as counseling, that will always help, and hopefully he's open to it in a way that he can express to that third party his issues in y'all's relationship, and you can do the same thing once y'all are there, you know, and not just y'all back and forth with each other, because nothing's ever going to get fixed like that. But that is a step in the right direction, having a total neutral party, not his mom, not your older sister, you know, that's going to have some interest at heart, but someone totally neutral that doesn't stand to gain from left or right, just wants to see you guys back on the right track. That's always a good thing, to be able to express how you feel, because he may not know all the things or problems that you have with him that you even stated just in this. You know, that may be the first time he hears it when you're in front of a third party. So I think that's a definite step in the right direction.
One thing I took from this is that you said when you're at your wit's end and you think about your future, you have nothing. No money, no job, no house, a few young kids, and some debt. You know, we have said this over the years so many times that you cannot change the other person. The only thing you can do is change yourself. And so if this is what you think of yourself when you think about your future, start there. Start with, let me get a job. Let me secure a future for myself. Let me be able to have a savings account that I'm putting money aside in, that I'm, you know, showing my kids that I can work. And sometimes, you know, there are men, I'm not saying that this is your situation, but there are men who make it sound like they want you to be a stay-at-home mom, like, I make so much money that you don't have to work. And then they secretly have resentment towards you because you don't work. Like, they secretly don't like it when they come home and see you sitting there doing nothing because they've been at work all day. It like builds resentment. So, you know, maybe take that step and reflect on yourself and do things for yourself. Get a job, go back to school, do something that is going to secure your future for you, not about him, for you and for your kids. And sometimes that is a good starting place. That may put him in a better mood to where, you know, he doesn't mind paying the bills as long as he sees that you're doing something too, and not just eating off of him, or, you know, sitting around the house doing nothing while he's working long hours or whatever.
Think about this too. When if you're having counseling, try to be open to the actual things that he's saying, and hopefully he'll be the same when you say the things that you have a problem with, because like you said a minute ago, the biggest thing you can do in a relationship to fix it is fix yourself. You can't fix the other person. It's so easy for us to write out everybody else's faults. Anybody can do that. Well, why don't you flip the script and write out some of your own faults? Now, if he says I got a problem with you, you spend too much money. You know in your head if, you know, you a money spender or not. Don't just be like, wait, you bought that? No, that's not what he's saying. He don't need you to see. Once you get back and forth, that's what you call an argument inside of an argument. See, you're skipping the whole point, because now that he pointed something out that he doesn't like, you can think of something similar that he did, which kind of gave you the green light to go ahead and do a little extra spending. No, Let's not do the argument inside of argument. If he says, hey, she's bad with money, or she don't like to hold a job, or she don't cook, if these are true statements, then that's a great place to start by cleaning the mirror and let me see what I can fix there, so that he won't have that complaint anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, you can only change you. You say that you feel like he's hiding money from you. Why would he need to do that? You put that in context where you're not working. What is it? Is he telling you, I don't have money for that or whatever? You counting his pockets while, he's spending however many hours at work. He should have this much money to give me. No, you need to, like I said, self-reflect and start having a more positive image about yourself. If you want to have a great future, do what you need to do to secure it. Tell him, look, I want to go back to work. So if you are putting money to the side, we need it so we can pay for daycare because I want to go to work. Or I want to go to school or whatever. But you have to communicate with him. You mentioned that he was gaslighting and that he was a narcissist. I don't even want to get into that because I hear the word narcissist practically every day at work. A lot of people just like using those phrases because they're new phrases to use and they have no clue what they actually mean. So I'm not even, you didn't really give any examples of him doing either one of them. So I won't speak to that, but you did mention him breaking things around the house. That's some dangerous behavior. And we talked last part about being abusive, and that to me that's a red flag of how things start. How abusive relationships start, like punching a hole in the wall instead of punching you, that type of thing. I'm not telling you to leave or anything because you said he's never been physical to you, but hopefully counseling will address all of those issues. I just pray that it'll help you both in your entire situation. But just know, getting on the deed and getting legally married, I wouldn't do either of those until counseling is successful. And you're able to talk out your issues and, figure out a better solution. Because if you having these why would you even want to marry somebody that's a narcissist and that gaslights you? Like, why would you even put yourself in that situation? That's why I'm thinking you may not know exactly what those words mean. You need to do a podcast on that. on what a narcissist is and what gaslighting is. But anyway, if you guys have any questions or want advice or anything, be sure to send them to us at getalovelikemindepodcast@gmail.com. We will not read your name. Everything's anonymous. We thank you guys for listening. We hope that we said something today that will glorify God and help you in whatever situation you're in. Remember, have some grace for your parents. And it's okay to apologize to your kids. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Happy Sunday.